that you came here to listen to our next panel, the third one and the final one. Panel about women, peace and security. So we're going to discuss the role of women in the peace building and peacekeeping processes, the gender inequality and some gender aspects of these questions, because we are voting for the equal access for all genders to live in peace and to build peace. So we're gonna start. I will be the moderator of the event. Not work? Oh, it works. So yeah, I will be the moderator of the event and of this exactly panel talk. We have our two special speakers, Ms. Karina Radchenka. She is the youth delegate to the Council of Europe, and Ms. Andriana Susak. She is a veteran and volunteer, and of course chairwoman of the Women's Veteran Movement. And I would like to ask our speakers to introduce themselves in a more complex way, because I've just done this briefly. So yeah, I'm providing them to you.
Thank you. My name is Andriana Susak. I didn't know what is interesting from me for you, but before 2014, I didn't imagine that I could be in armed forces or I could be a soldier. When the war started, we moved to the Luhansk region from Revolution of Dignity and from Euromaidan, and from 2014, I was in armed forces in the east of Ukraine. I took part in combat operation. I was assault trooper, but because in Ukraine women didn't have the rights to join the armed forces and to be on combat position. By documents, I was a seamstress, so I demobilized like a seamstress, but I'm national hero of Ukraine. I have a lot of awards like for courage or something like that from the armed forces, so I'm combat seamstress in Ukraine. But then Maria Berlinskaya, she is also activist and the head of Institute of Gender Program. She created a project Invisible Battalion in Ukraine that shows women on the front line their life, their positions, what they're doing there, and this helps our society to understand that women are on the front line, they can be on combat position, and in 2016, 63 combat positions were opened in armed forces of Ukraine, and now we worked with UN Women like in gender equality in armed forces, and we created a lot of projects to show the women, to show the role of women in peace, peace and security processes, and also a new organization that was created what was created 1 year ago, but was registered just 2 weeks ago. It is Women Veteran Movement in Ukraine. That we have more than 100 participants in our movement, and now we try to build democratic society, to build good, to create good processes in changing. In armed forces and in sector of defense. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is my deep pleasure to be here today among you, young change makers, as a youth delegate to the Council of Europe, representing Ukraine to the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities. I believe that from youth, the change will start. And thank you. And we are now to blaze new trails and to bridge the rivers in order to make us heard on all the levels. The topic is highly important. Thank you so much for invitation, as it is also very deeply personal for me. I'm from the region where the war is currently ongoing.
And when the war started, everything in my life has changed. From the consumption-based model to a kind of mission, personal mission to stop this one time, because my feelings vary from anger into like understanding that we shall do concrete steps towards peace. And now, luckily, I have the chance to be the voice of my people from my country, from my home region on international level, of how it is important to reach peace. And several weeks ago, a week ago, I took part in very important global summit, women political leaders, where 450 people, 50 powerful women from different corners of the world joined together in order to discuss how to increase women participation on all levels, how to stop wars, and what can be the new rethought role of women in all fields. And also, I would like to share now one of my projects is 100 Words for Peace. Please, the next slide. We started to collect opinions of people from all over the planet on how to reach peace in the format of 100 words. And since the start of the project in August, more than 50 countries, people from 50 countries have already joined. So it was also supported by the Council of Europe, it was supported by the Congress, by presidents, by social and human rights activists from all over the planet. So I would also ask you, dear participants, to take part in this project, and really happy to join this discussion.
Thank you very much for this incredible introduction, and what you're doing is really important. It's like of high importance for everyone who is sitting here, who is not present right now here in this audience, but we all are, I would say, fighting for peace. I won't say like we're doing something, we're fighting, we're trying to reach it, and we're successful in that, and I'm so happy that women are really engaged in these processes. And here comes my first question to you. So which difference does it actually make if women are included in peace-making processes?
Recently, I have communicated with the Nobel Prize women 1997, and she formed the community of Nobel women leaders to promote peace and encourage more women to be engaged into this process. And when I asked her what was the key difference in their approach, they say, our approaches, our peace-making approach is womenative. I started to look up in the dictionary what does it mean, because I know that it has nothing to do with feminism, with something like that. It means not women-like, it means the only thing that woman can do. Woman by nature is encouraged to protect her children and to protect the world around her. And when this basic concept is under war, is undermined, women are ready to pay any price, because every peacemaker is usually asked himself or herself a question: what is the price that I am ready to pay for peace? The price can be very, very heavy. And if we speak about women who fight, in fact fight for their children, they can pay any price, any possible and impossible. And also, protection of children is the key area which changes throughout participation, increased participation of women into security, into peace-building processes. My grandma was a child of war, and she was promised the whole her generation that by the United Nations in 1945 that war would never come again. And unfortunately, war came in our country, and in 2014, the children of the Second World War were forced to hide in the bomb shelters with their grandchildren. And we are know to stop this only through women participation, through this mother-like feeling of devotion, of protection, of safety, and of course through love.
War is not for men and war is not for women. War is not for humanity. War in Ukraine created the situation when not women, not just men, but also children were moving to the east of Ukraine to fight for their country. Because country is the reason why we were moving to the east. And just Ukraine. If this situation didn't happen in 2014, I don't know, maybe we will not speak now about resolution and about gender equality in Ukraine, also in sector of defense. But what can women do better? In United States there is a book, Shoot Like a Girl, where the author describes that physically the girls are shooting better than men, because that's why the best snipers are women. And when I read this book, I also discuss it with my husband. He's also he's now serviceman during this whole 5 years. And I said that we are both like equal in rights to be the defender of our country. Yes, I am a woman. Yes, I can be a mother. But you are a husband and you must be a father. As in family we have equal rights, in society we also have equal rights. But we must be professional. In armed forces, there are equal rights, but you have to be professional. You have to be a soldier. If you are a girl or woman and you join in the armed forces, you have to be professional. In global sense, what women can do in our situation, in Ukrainian situation. We were screening Invisible Battalion, the film, documentary film about 6 women's stories on the front line in 15 countries around the world, in headquarters of NATO, in headquarters of UN, in 46 cities around the world. And when our international affairs like council, like in the United States, like diplomats, they sometimes don't have the possibility to say the truth. Then we came, screened the film about 6 stories of women and say the truth. That Russian is a terrorist, that Russian Federation annexed Crimea. And now we have a war, and every day our people are killed by Russian soldiers. And when we were screening this film in headquarters of NATO, the high-rank diplomats of NATO said that your girls did in 2 hours more than your diplomats during 5 years. I think that the most effective power of women is to say the truth, to stop this, to stop the enemy and to win, of course, and to save country, because like Ukraine, we have one country, we have one mother. That's why.
May I also short point? Thank you for mentioning the importance of protecting girls, because you know we are now in the in-between period from the generation of ignorance and violence towards women to the generation where the gender equality will absolutely exist. And the girls, young women, shall take the challenge. And I always remind myself of a meeting with a 10 years old young girl in the hosting facilities when we came like a group of volunteers with some packages, some food, clothing and so on. And you know what was the first question of this girl to us? She asked, how could she help us? It was, of course, not the question of a child, but in fact the statement of an adult. So girls are ready to take this challenge now. They shall not wait until they will be 18 and so on. And the example of Nobel Prize winners such as Malala Yousafzai, who got this prize when she was only 16, proves us. And also when I've shown the photo about the project, it was also Bada Labed from Syria. It's a 10-year-old girl, and now she fights for peace, promoting her story. When Aleppo was bombed, she tweeted about the circumstances. She informed the world about this huge problem, and she urged the world to stop this war, so the children like her could have toys again. They could have play and not hide in the bomb shelters. And also, when we speak about women coming into the armed forces, it's not only professionalism, it's removing the barriers. Because even in the United States, in order to join the special armed forces, women shall have a weight not less than 90-95 kilos. So you can imagine this quite lots of weight only to take part in the test. So the tests show that women are more even effective in some exercises and so on, and they can equally participate. So it's quite a huge problem. And do you remember the film Soldier Jane, when it was like testing army, the first woman who entered this battle, and she won it because of her female approach?
So I completely agree with the role of women in peace fight and peace resolution, and because of our nature, as you mentioned, and because of our professionalism, because we women are very responsible in anything that we do. I would say sometimes even more responsible than men are, because we trying to keep everything around us in a proper condition and to keep it safe. So this is our mission, which comes just naturally. And I absolutely support this point. And also the situation in Ukraine is really complex. It's really hard to resolve it, to find a solution of this conflict. And our government making the best efforts. And the women should be that, like, the biggest hint or the most I would say powerful point, like the final point in this fight to reach the peace on the our eastern part of country. Yeah. So here, my next question comes to you. You know, we mentioned the peace. Women, Peace and Security resolution that was created by the UN, and how the implementation of women's voice through this convention could be implemented in Ukraine in particular. So not just generally in the world, because UN is mostly like, okay, we can help in general, but I'm more like being specific, and I would like to ask to answer how specifically in Ukraine we could implement this resolution.
I think with the help of civil society, with the help of stories like women of Rome, women of armed forces, with people who, with women who were harassed, and together with the government to make the mechanism of changing in law, and then adopting new laws, and then changing in society, and then like this question is a little bit like, this question is simple, but it's hard to implement it in real life in Ukraine. Like in armed forces, women didn't have the right to join the combat operation because they were forbidden by the law. But then the law was adopted, and now we have more than 28,000 women in armed forces in Ukraine.
I would say by translating words into reality, because sometimes resolutions are adopted on different levels, but unfortunately they will at least nothing without practical action plans which shall be implemented on all the levels. And in my work I usually focus on local and regional level, so it can be like if we change the scope from global to local and regional and try to foster changes on this small level by small steps, we will achieve practical changes. And the resolution adopted on gender equality, adopted by the Council of Europe, was implemented by 3 cities of Ukraine, and now Kyiv, the capital, also joined this resolution. And in fact, it resulted that the city councils created the programs which supported women to be engaged into peacemaking processes, into social entrepreneurships, and so on. So it's one point of cooperating with other institutions and also civil society. And of course, another point is political will. Men can do a lot, in fact, almost everything to make women heard. Because, you know, there are examples of he for she campaigns, not in my parliament campaign, the well-known case when John Bercow, the speaker of English Parliament, accused Boris Johnson of making a sexist remark. It almost stopped the wording violence against women in United Kingdom House of Commons, and so on and so forth. So men shall use their voice to initiate this resolution. And also the former head of the Council of Europe office in Ukraine, Martin Enberg, she is now the ambassador of Sweden in the Council of Europe, did quite a lot. So for instance, in Ukraine, the minimum level of quotas for women participation in local and regional councils increased to 30%. And through this period, 4 years, we can see how many initiatives were taken in terms of social protection, in terms of protection of human rights, development, the so-called soft initiatives, which are often postponed by some men because they think we should provide the first very urgent initiative and then think about youth, about the future. But if you think about youth as women do now, you will have better future, of course.
So the both of you are, in terms of your background experience, you mentioned the local level as the main level where the main actions shall be done, shall be implemented, not just in general, but the local level is the most important for us to be focused on. And my question gonna be I'm sure that both of you can see some gaps and challenges in what is going on right now in the implementation of national policy here in Ukraine to prevent peace, to prevent conflict and to build peace. So, in your opinion, the gaps and maybe some things that the government or men they don't see, and you as the women, you can say, hey, turn your attention to this point. This is this is so important.
So again, about the sector of defense, I think that the main challenges for me and for our movement is the distance between governments and civil society, and it's very hard to talk to them because even now, for example, the ministers or the deputies, men in parliament, they think that I have that women have some places They said, your place is at home with your children, you have to grow up your children, you are wife, you have to cook borscht or something like that. And even now, these stereotypes and this post-Soviet background of this man are living in our society. But as for the national plan and the practical challenges that we are going to do with our movement, like civil society. First, it's law in our constitution. For that, it means that women and children are forbidden to work on labors that are like not safety for their health. Women and children are in one case. That's why we have just 63 combat position open for women in armed forces. Then challenges that for example, in Ministry of Defense, we didn't have national gender advisor even yet during this 5 years, and that's why all the laws that are adopted, they are not through the gender perspective. Also, our deputies and our ministers, they now just try to hear but don't hear about gender budgeting. What means gender budgeting? It means that during these 5 years we have more than 28,000 women in armed forces, but even now we don't have women boots and uniforms in armed forces. And for example, young girls that joined in 2019, it is the first year when young girl joined Bohun Lyceum. They even don't have military trousers for them, underwear, because we don't have gender budgeting, and the Minister of Defense and other deputies, they think that women can go in men's boots and men's uniforms. This is from the economic perspective, but we must do these practical cases to implement, because we want to go to NATO standards, but we don't have NATO standards, we don't have for what we are looking now.
One of the key problems is stereotypes. For instance, I know that that is a table. But if everyone in this room and in this world would tell me that there is a car, I would probably change my mind and start to believe that there is a car. And of course, if everyone says that the women role has nothing to do with the level of power, with the level of military sector, and so on, the so-called men jobs, of course, nothing will change. So first of all, we shall start with our mentality. And gender stereotypes are unfortunately deeply enrooted in every country. And for instance, Iceland has implemented the Reykjavik Gender Participation Index, which shows how much women are active. Iceland has the priority, the first race, and I do really hope that we will still move through certain changes to this goal. And another important aspect is violence against women, which is often very silent case. Women are often intimidated, for instance, even if they want to apply to some positions of power, if they want to run elections and so on. And here is the study in which we have made with IFEC, very powerful election study of online-based violence against women, to which challenges women are, from which challenges women are suffering when it is about their challenge for studying some positions and so on. And of course, I would also use the best practices from other countries. And such a platforms is very huge step forward gender equality in all our countries, because in some ways some of us has better practices in one field, some have better practices in another. So peace begins with dialogue, is written, and women participation also.
Yeah, we came to stereotypes, and that's the case that is very, like, I feel it every day. I think every girl and every woman in this room right now have experienced this bias and gender-based inequality at least once, I'm sure. Maybe you even haven't recognized the fact that there was gender-based inequality. Maybe you were sexually abused. Maybe you were harassed. I would say these words because this what really happens in real life. And I want to pay your attention that every voice must be heard, and as you mentioned, we have the power to speak, and that's what we must do. Don't be afraid to speak, don't be afraid of the stereotypes, don't be afraid of the fact that somebody would think something wrong about you, or would point at you and say, oh, these girls, or oh, she's just like. I hate this fact, and I think everybody should be equal in the treatment and should be treated with equal respect. And if we're talking about peace, building peace, the gender stereotypes should be like erased. Just like press the delete button on our minds and our mentality, and that would like push forward the peace building processes and peace making in the whole world. And the question, I think it's gonna be the last question. I would say, I would like to hear your personal, like what comes from your deep heart, from your emotions, how you feel about the like gender stereotypes, and maybe you have some sort of, I would say, not advices, but I've thought about, okay, I could change this, and this would help me to do this. So I would like to hear this position. Yeah, you can start it.
I think also women themselves shall be like deleted from these gender stereotypes, because when you have the mind open and devoted to some changes, it will always help you, and you will not think about what other people think how they feel about you. If you feel inside your heart that you do the right things, and not only personally for you but for other people. I know that everything depends on the circumstances. Sometimes the woman's role is to be in the kitchen, in fact, and to save others from hunger. But sometimes the woman's role is to be on the battlefield, to save others from war. So we just shall not be attached to the stereotypes that the woman should do that or this, and so on. We should just understand, as every human being, we are always in different circumstances. And also, it's well-known, like proverb in China, women means half of the sky. In fact, we as a young women leaders and also young men leaders should understand that the success of one woman can make quite a big change, but the successes of all of us can make really enormous change. So I would like to wish you everything best, and continue your dealing, continue fighting the gender stereotypes, and continue moving regardless of everything. Just leave your thoughts that your doubts somewhere behind. Just do it.
Motivation speech. Nobody can say me what I should do or what I shouldn't do, because I'm a assault trooper and I can kill. Just my 4-year son can say me what I should do because I'm responsible of him, and he just can said me that Mom, you should give me a eat or borscht or vareniki or something like that, because in 4 years he doesn't know how to cook. And as for peace, I think that stereotypes, post-Soviet background, that countries, gender equality, I think that education is the key. Like good education is the key to change the situation. Because I'm 32 years old, and I was a great brand manager. I was developing Japanese company in Ukraine before the war started. I have never imagined that I will be a soldier, and but my motivation, my soul, my way of life just say me that I don't have a chance just not to go to the east or just not to go to the revolution of dignity, because even now I think that it was truth and it is truth to defend country. For women, yes, we must support those women who don't have the motivation to say the truth. Because when we're talking about sexual harassment or sexual abuse, and sector of defense is a close territory, that even now try not to speak about the cases of sexual harassed women in armed forces. And during this 5 years, our Minister of Defense said that according to statistics, we have just 5 cases of sexual harassed women in armed forces during the combat operations and during this shade war. But we have more cases. And if you know, there is a huge story of Victoria Sikal. Her story was telling in New York Times. She had the power to say the truth, but in Ukrainian society, the police, the other high-rank men, they didn't want to hear her, and they didn't take her letter of explaining what is going on in the troop. And then she went to New York Times, and this story is telling around the world. Why? Because we don't have the mechanism of preventing, and we don't have the mechanism of what to do for a girl, where to go, what to say, and how the opposite side, like the man who, like police, what they should do. That's why we have a lot of work in our society, and I think that not in just our society. I was talking to women in armed forces in the United States. They also have these cases. In Great Britain also have these cases, but we don't have the mechanism. We should create, adopt this mechanism of preventing. Education, truth, and deep believing what you are doing. That all that things, all that projects that you are doing, they can change the future. Change the future, not your life, but the future of young girls who are looking on you and say, you are a national hero, and I want to be also great women in this society. Thank you.
Thank you for these inspirational words. They were really touching, and yeah, I can feel this emotional and very sensitive, I would say, topic, but it's not a topic. I would say it's like a kind of lifestyle maybe, and I think we need to firstly be educated. That's true, and I hope that this summit and some summits like that would help us to be educated in the modern way. Secondly, believe in yourself. Just believe that you can change. You, me, everybody, we have this force to make the changes. And the third thing is, don't be afraid to act. Like, I mean, not just like, okay, I can do, but do this. Don't be afraid of that. And I think we can reach peace through the dialogue, through the words, through the actions, through everything. And this is absolutely possible. So don't hesitate, act, and we're gonna reach the peace as quickly as it's possible, even maybe in this evening. I don't know. So yeah, now we come to the Q&A session. If anybody here has the question, maybe a couple of questions to our speakers, you're welcome to ask anything you want to. Questions? Really? Okay, yeah, we got one. You can just say, well,
I wanted to ask, there's a lot of discrimination for people from the place that had war conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And I'm interested in it, I don't know why. So I wanted to ask what's the solution or improvement for these people who are being discriminated on getting houses, apartments, because when I go online, I read like if you're from Lugansk, you're not allowed to get an apartment. And I'm wondering, like youths like me and their parents that want the house, so what's the solution for them?
thank you for your questions. So yeah, you got it, the point?
Yes, thank you so much for this question. In fact, it's not only important for people who are discriminated, it's even more important for people who are the victims of war or internally displaced. And unfortunately, there is 1.7 million IDPs in our countries, and I'm really proud with the fact that 3 weeks ago, the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities adopted the resolution protecting the rights of internally displaced persons on local and regional level. And if we speak about aspects how covered there, it was also housing, because everyone shall not feel himself like ignored, because you know these people like lost almost everything, and now the key role of governments, of civil society is to make them like feel like home again. And feeling of home, it's not only property, though it's important. It's about feeling attachment to playing a social roles, to being heard, to having the right to vote, and so on. And we shall just, through our voices, start the campaign which will promote this resolution. And now we are working on its translation in order to provide not minimal support, but to make these people economic independent. Because most of people being discriminated are adjusted to certain level of living, of salary, of having some property, and never the governmental support will be enough to make them feel like home. So it's really important to provide themselves with the skills of social entrepreneurship, to encourage themselves to start the projects promoting also the skills of others. So it shall be like a community of people working together. And I know lots of examples from different countries, from Balkans, from Syria, from former Yugoslavia, when people form their, having little resources, have made their homes because of support. Some people could make some furniture, some people could make the house, could build it. So it's very important, communicating.
I think that the solution is that the government and politics, they must know the needs of discriminated person. Because, for example, as for veterans and for veterans with injuries, these social packages of veteran is from the Second World War. So now I have the right to have this telephone, you know, like with like was 20 years ago or something like that. So this is my right, like a veteran. And the government didn't make the investigation what is the need of internal displaced people, of discriminated people, and of veterans. Why is so important to make this investigation? Because, for example, for veterans, we don't need money. We don't need. I don't talk about people with injuries because they need support and they need money. But among 300,000 veterans that are in Ukraine now, we don't need like a free cases of a free marshutka or something like free buses, free marshutka or something like that. So we don't need money, we don't need this social package, but we need like respect from the society. This is the first reason, and we need the chance to of rehabilitation and reintegration in civil society, because a lot of veterans are coming back with PTSD, so they need a program of rehabilitation, like medical program. And then just the case is to find a job and to work and to live like real life. As for internal displaced person, I think that that the program not just to give a flat or just where do you want to live, like in Kiev, in Lviv or something like that, but propose them to build their house and to find their home here in Ukraine. Like this must be a political will of making a village where the internal displaced people can build their home. Because we don't know whether they can come back to Donbass, to Luhansk or something like that, and if they will come back home, what they will meet there.
We hope for that.
Yeah, no, we hope. Donbass and Crimea is Ukraine, and we will fight for our territory and we will back them.
Thank you so much for mentioning psychological support. It's enormously important. And without some people from this area, victims of war, when you try to get them in contact, when you try to communicate, the key is just conversation. Conversation about what happened, about how does person feel about the weather, something like that. Because when the governmental programs are implemented, they usually focus on basic priorities, money, housing, and so on. And this person is even not heard. So thank you for mentioning like the targeted need-by-need approach.
Yeah, building peace through dialogue is the main aim of everybody who is sitting right now here, who is just like outside somewhere on the street, to communicate, to be open-minded, to be open for any help. If somebody asking you, hey, please, could you help me? I would say it's gonna be the best option to just to answer him, yeah, of course, I can. And you're gonna make a lot for this person. You're gonna mean a lot for him or her, and you probably can save somebody's life. Even like saying, yeah, hi, yeah, of course I can help you. Maybe he just needs a conversation. Just a brief small talk, or maybe a long philosophical dialogue, but if you're open-minded and you're open to dialogue, we will reach peace and we will build new society without stereotypes, without any biased information. We will reach peace, we will be strong, and we will be together. So yeah, I think it's. Do we have any other questions? I think we're finished and done with this very emotional and very sincere discussion on the gender-based stereotypes on the role of women. So I'm really grateful for everybody, especially for speakers who came and who were supporting the idea of peace through dialogue, the role of women in this dialogue, in this fight for peace. And thank you everybody who came today here to listen to this discussion. We have finished it for today, and we'll come to our next point of agenda, which is actually the final presentation of certificates of participants. So 5 minutes break, you can, I don't know, take some breeze or whatever you want to, and we'll come back in 5 minutes.